Peace, family. This is Tariq. Welcome back again for another day, another episode of Knowledge Corner. All right, today's insight of the day: desire, determination, and dedication. Desire, determination, dedication. It comes from, I got this message from listening to the song Highway 5 Chronicles by Larry June and Cardo. The line that stuck out to me was, only thing on my mind was I gotta make it out. And for those who don't know, this past weekend was my 30th high school reunion. And I purposely didn't post anything this weekend because I wanted to get my thoughts and everything together regarding, everything that happened over the weekend. When you go to school with someone, and when you go to school with someone for as long as we did, some of us went to school, had been in the same schools with each other since we were in elementary school. Some of us, middle school, and then of course a lot of us high school. Even when you think you know someone, you really never really know their story. You really never know what they're going through. And just from having conversations with a lot of my classmates over the weekend, a lot of us went through some things as kids. I really thought a lot of us actually graduated together, and we didn't. Some of us actually ended up having to transfer and graduating from other schools in the city. But what's good is a lot of us had the desire, the determination, and the dedication to not allow what happened to us as kids, to define who we were. A lot of us are business owners. A lot of us are doing some of us have retired from, the military. A lot of us are grandparents. Myself, I'm not one as of yet. But we had that desire, that determination, and that dedication to get through those rough times. Myself, I had a lot of rough times in high school. One of the reasons why I didn't stay at home to go to school was because I was trying to run away from what I had at home. And in the process, I actually lost a lot of contact with a lot of friends that I had over the years. But fortunately, we were able to, reconnect and everything. But there was always one constant for me, was my best friend. But, a lot of us had parents who were, on drugs. A lot of us, had parents who were, alcoholics, or end up losing, them, and they end up having to go in either the foster care or go and stay with someone else, in their family in order for them to, finish school. But again, we all have that desire, that determination, and the dedication to actually get through those tough times. And we did not allow those times to define us. And what's really interesting is throughout this whole weekend, regardless of where we were or what we were doing, it was almost like we were back in high school again. We went to brunch yesterday, and a lot of us were sitting at one big table, but then there were like other tables, and it was almost like we were back in the cafeteria again. It was like we were older, of course, but it was just like time hadn't really passed, and, listening to those conversations and actually hearing people, say, well, this happened to me when I was, we were in high school, and That happened to me when, we were in high school. As I said, for me, I had my moments, I had my things that I was going through at that time. And a lot of times my safe space was school. That was my way of trying to escape from, what I had going on. But again, that wasn't everything. Once I graduated high school and went to college, I was still searching for, struggling with what that was, and even a few years after that, that's when I learned what desire, determination, and dedication actually meant. Struggle was always going to happen, but it shouldn't never be permanent. Struggle is always going to be temporary, and God is always going to find a way for you to get out of that struggle. You just got to believe that you're actually going to be able to get through it. Psalms chapter 40, verse 2, he brought me up from a desolate pit and out of the muddy clay and set my feet on a rock, making my steps secure. So we see here that believing in God will allow us to make our steps secure once we go through that struggle, but you have to believe that you're going to be able to go through that struggle and be able to make it out on the other side. A lot of people, never make it out of that struggle. A lot of people are comfortable in that struggle because that's all they know. But I was never content on staying in that struggle. I always knew there was going to be, better times. And I believe now a lot of my better times are ahead of me, but I had to get to a point to where I understood that God's love for me is never going to supersede what I have going on in that particular moment. I'm always going to be able to provide for myself, but God is the ultimate provider. And I'm just blessed. I'm just blessed, man. I'm blessed that I was able to get to that point to where I firmly believe that desire, determination, and dedication will always make a way for me. I'm always going to be able to get out of any situation that I'm in as long as I have the desire, the determination, and the dedication to actually get through it. Surah Ash-Sharh, which translates to the expansion. This is the 94th surah in the Quran. These are ayats, or verses 5 through 8. So verily, with every difficulty, there is relief. Verily, with every difficulty, there is relief. Therefore, when thou art free from them immediate tasks, still labor hard, and to thy Lord turn all thy attention. What's interesting is, so verily, with every difficulty, there is relief. It was actually said twice. So ayat 5 and ayat 6 are basically the same thing with a minor adjustment. Just letting you know, regardless of those times are going to get hard. Struggle is temporary, but staying committed to God's purpose is eternal. We always will be able to get through anything that is put in front of us as long as we believe that God is doing it, and God is doing it for a purpose. God is doing it to make us stronger. And as they say, God doesn't put anything on us that he doesn't believe that we can't handle. You just have to believe that you're able to do that. So that's all I got for today, man. As always, like, comment, share, subscribe, and positive energy activates constant elevation. Peace.